much. So I'm going to tell a little story about my career, what got me from PY in Sydney to being chief economist at NASDAQ in New York. But I'm also going to weave into it a story about the finance industry and how it's evolved in the last 25, 30 years. But I think the right place to start would be to talk about two constants in my career. I think change has been a constant, and you'll see why when we start to go through the story. But also, I've followed my passions, and I've been lucky enough to keep following my passions. So one of my passions at school was math. Right? I had a lot more hair when I was younger as well. But I guess that's why I chose accounting, right? Because accounting's all about numbers. So I fell into accounting, I got sent into an audit team, and that was actually a really lucky thing for me because I got to experience a lot of different industries. Okay, so I got to experience the advertising industry, and I think the best thing about that was the model shoots. The CFO would run down the corridor and grab me out of the audit room and say, they're filming something or they're shooting something downstairs, let's go have a look. And it was always fun to see the products that they were filming. I was also lucky enough to be involved in the transport industry. And so I guess back then the most interesting thing was they were just starting to automate transport. So the packages would come off the trucks, and it was actually a computer that would reroute them to different trucks to go off to the next different destinations. Little did we know what we were going to be able to do now with our mobile phones and seeing exactly where packages are. I got to do food manufacturing. I think the best thing about that was all the free food on Fridays. But unfortunately, I was not on the Diageo audit. And then I got to do banking, right, which is the boring one. Sounds like it, doesn't it? Okay. But I remember the first day I walked out onto a trade floor, and it was pretty exciting. And this is back before computers ran trading. I mean, you can see on the trade floor here, it's humans, it's pieces of paper. It's really not that long ago. The funny thing was, like, I was in audit back then, so they stuck me in the mail room, because that's what you do with auditors, right? And there was runners. I mean, you guys probably never heard of this, but there was actual physical script, like pieces of paper. When you bought a share, your broker had to go and get the script from the broker that sold it, and so these humans would run around the city delivering script, and I was in the room with them. I was lucky enough one day to actually get to go down onto this is the Sydney Futures Exchange, to go down onto the floor and meet the guys that were in the trading pits. And pretty quickly I realized a couple of things. When you're my height, you needed quite a big box to stand on if you wanted to be seen by the pit boss in the middle. Okay, so really I couldn't trade because I would have been like the guy at the back that no one could see me trying to buy or sell anything. The other thing I realized is that most of the guys were much better at football than math. Okay, so that's when I got a desk job, and clearly a much better haircut. Okay. And this is where the change starts to really come in. So back then, computers were really just starting to do trading. I got a license to work the Australian Stock Exchange terminal, and it literally was a terminal. It was like a screen and a keyboard, and you type in like, you know, BHP, buy 4,000 shares at a price, and hit enter, and it would send it into the screen, and you'd see it on the screen, and that's about all it did. So it was pretty backward back then. How many of you guys remember the micro floppy disks that are in here? Like, hey, we got some old people in here, right? Yeah. So my daughter, who's 6, saw a box of about 20 of them in our drawer the other day, and she's like, Dad, what's that? And I was like, well, you know, it's just like the little card that's in your tablet that you save all your movies on. And then I started to think about it. Okay, that tablet, it's a little, like it's about this big, isn't it? The little micro, or the thumb drive, basically, yeah. It's a 64 gig thumb drive. And I did the math, and I'm like, I had a box of 21 megabyte micro floppies. I would have needed 3,000 boxes of the boxes for the same amount as what she has on this tiny little thing now. I mean, that's just a sign of how quickly data has evolved and the sorts of things that finance has had to deal with. So people worry that automation will significantly affect industries. In reality, it's had a huge impact on finance already, and really quickly. And I guess I've been lucky to kind of ride that change. The fact that I'm numerate, and that all of you guys are clearly numerate, is really helpful when there's more data and more analysis and more quantification of things to do. So we're in a lucky position, really. And I've been able to grow with the technology rather than be replaced by it. So, when we think a lot about the math of finance, I'm guessing a lot of you guys did economics at university as well, Black-Scholes, CAPM, they're all invented in the last century, like 1970, 1980, all these amazing financial theories with volatility and optimizations, and you sort of think about Harry Markowitz with modern portfolio theory and getting correlations and weights of portfolios to optimize into the curve. Like, all that stuff was done with algebra, okay? It really wasn't until this century that computers got strong enough to do the math and actually run these portfolios. So what's interesting is with electronic trading and machine-readable prices, you were actually able to start to implement and trade some of these strategies. It's almost like you needed the computers before you could run the strategies. Once you were running those strategies, trading changed completely. Okay? So suddenly, instead of a hedge fund or a customer sending one buy and one sell, we were getting portfolios of buys and portfolios of sells, and there was multiple of them coming through at once, and orders started to trade faster in the market. So literally, I needed to change my workflow, and I needed to automate myself just to keep up with the amount of orders that were coming in the door. And so with that, algorithms were born. All right, so algorithms to trade. And what's interesting is when you go to electronic trading, even off-exchange trading needs to happen on a computer somewhere. So some brainiac in marketing decided to call those venues dark pools, not realizing investors would probably be not really comfortable trading in a dark pool. But that's another story, and it's in this book. You can read it. It's actually my bad book. But also things like arbitrage got automated. So statistical arbitrage strategies, you were actually able to compute the math of the two different relationships, and when you saw the disconnection, you were able to go and trade them both, and actually trade them on the computer. You didn't have to have a human involved. Futures arbitrage strategies could be triggered the instant that prices dislocated, okay? And then market makers, obviously, who are trying to do two-sided quotes in one stock, were getting lifted and hit on those prices that they were putting out there. So they had to be accurate to within seconds as well, so that their prices weren't going to be lifted incorrectly. So all of a sudden, the concept of HFT was born, okay? And hopefully you guys have all heard of HFT. I certainly deal with it every day at work. So what's interesting is automation has resulted in almost all trading moving off the floors. So the Sydney Futures Exchange pit that we saw earlier has closed a long time ago. Before I even left Sydney, this is like 17 years ago now, the Australian Stock Exchange was already a fitness first gym. So it's much better use for it, really. And it's a dirty little secret, actually, that if you go down on the New York Stock Exchange floor in the middle of the day, it looks much more like this. There really aren't humans down there trading. I mean, once the cameras turn off Kramer, everyone's gone. And what's interesting, you might not realize it, but the NASDAQ Stock Exchange is not in Times Square, okay? The bell is there, but not much else. So when we do our market opens and our market closes with companies, they come there, they press the button, that's the bell. We have the TV studios there, that's about all we have there. Most of the trading is done in a suburb halfway to Princeton. And in reality, it's done in a great big data center. So when you think about NASDAQ, right? The NASD was the National Association of Securities Dealers. It was a regulatory organization. And back in the day, the New York had listing requirements that meant a lot of smaller companies couldn't actually IPO on their market. So NASD created this automated quote facility. It just made it easier for people to say, I'd like to buy this little tiny stock that no one's really heard of. So that's the AQ of the NASDAQ. So really, NASDAQ is one of the first automated markets, and we've never, ever had a trading floor. But when you fast forward to today, the market is creating 250 megabits of data a second, okay? It's phenomenal. Everything I have to do in the cloud, because the amount of data I'm crunching in my team is just phenomenal. So far, this story's been a lot about history, right? I can tell you guys, like, yeah, this guy's old, get him off. What's the future of trading going to be like, all right? So when you think about it, there's some signs already, and even what we talked about in the last presentation. big data is definitely important. So hedge funds are deploying big data to value stocks. They're looking at satellite photographs, they're buying phone location data and user information to try and predict sales, to make trades before all you guys get the 10Qs and the 10Ks done. Okay, so before anyone knows whether the company's profitable, they've already worked it out. You've got algorithms, which we already talked about, starting to use AI. So rather than a human saying, I think it would be smart to bid, wait 5 minutes and then cross the spread, they're getting artificial intelligence to just try different things and work out what signals less and what costs less to trade. You've got thousands of portfolios like ETFs, where the basket of underlyings is being part of the valuation put into the ETFs, and they're calculating the fair value constantly. They're priced within a very tight spread in terms of the trading profit that a market maker makes, and they're doing it live, automatically, adjusting to news, adjusting to increases in volatility all the time, and trading $100 billion a day. But that's already happening. Okay, so what's next? And to think about that, I think we need to step back from exchanges and stock exchanges and look at an even bigger picture. Because what you start to realize is that electronic markets are actually everywhere. So you think about your daily or maybe weekly life. You go on StubHub or eBay, you're searching through products electronically and you're trading. You go to Kayak and Priceline, you're comparing prices. There's transparency, there's price discovery. You can see what it's going to cost to stay in a hotel or to take a plane. You look at the transport industry now. I have a package that I hope is delivered tonight because my daughter wants it tomorrow, and I think it's on its way. And the transport companies are able to use that information to know that they're going to need a truck halfway between LA and New York to pick it up and move it to wherever I am. And all of those logistics now are completely automated. Even the advertising industry is buying click data. And they're using machine learning to send ads to us that they think might actually be something we're going to buy. Okay? I can't wait until they start using artificial intelligence because I'm sick of getting really good deals when I've already paid for something. But what's the common thread, okay, to all of these innovations? I think it is that automating markets and it's collecting a lot of data, which we've been talking about, okay? And what that does is it allows computers to customize our experiences. It allows everybody to dynamically optimize price, so to look at what's happening to supply and demand much more quickly, and to pass that information back to producers, which are probably a lot of your clients, and help them understand whether they should be hiring more people or less people, longer hours or shorter hours, what they should do with inventory. And at the end of the day, that makes them faster, they can react faster, and they're more efficient in terms of what they're producing and how much they have to hold on standby. So basically, more data is equal to less wastage. It's much better for efficiency in the market. So like I said, one of the constants of my career has been change. I think by riding that change, I've seen innovation everywhere, not just in stock markets. But generally what's happened is it's made everything cheaper and faster and more efficient. And I think the next wave of innovation will be automation, not just of stock markets, but of markets everywhere. Thanks.